Hi guys, John in Japan speaking. Thank you for joining me. Those of you who have seen my JLPT N1 journey video know what I've done right with Japanese. But you don't know yet what I've done horribly and miserably wrong, which is what I'd like to talk about in this video. So without further ado, let's jump into my 4 biggest mistakes learning Japanese. The biggest mistake will come at the end of the video, so make sure you guys stick around. Alright, mistake number 1. Not taking Japanese onomatopoeia seriously. So for those of you who don't know, Japanese onomatopoeia are words that represent sounds, like nature sounds, mental states, movement, all kinds of different things. And these are a vital part of a native speaker's vocabulary. The first words that young children speak are often onomatopoeia. So for example, a small child might refer to a car as a boo-boo, because boo-boo is the sound that a car makes. They would refer to a dog as a wan-chan, because dogs say wan-wan. And they might refer to gargling and spitting as gara-gara-pe, because gara-gara sounds like the gargling sound gara-gara, and then pe is a sound that represents spitting out the water. Pe. Gara-gara-pe. A lot of children's books are written solely in onomatopoeia, so they don't include any grammar, any nouns, anything like that. It's just onomatopoeia associated with pictures. Basically, guys, what I want to say here is that onomatopoeia are a vital part of a native's vocabulary. Okay, so if that's the case, why didn't I take them seriously? Well, the reason is that you can read through a high-level nonfiction book without ever coming across an onomatopoeia. And I was a fan of nonfiction, so I didn't feel the need to learn onomatopoeia, basically. And you might say, well, John, you read a bunch of manga, right? Like, that has onomatopoeia, doesn't it? And yes, it does indeed have a lot of onomatopoeia, but it's usually part of the art. So it's written in the picture rather than in the text, which means that you can basically ignore it and just read the text. You don't need to know onomatopoeia to go to the post office and get them to mail something. You don't need onomatopoeia to shop. You don't really need onomatopoeia to make friends. So it didn't seem very important to me. Even to this day, onomatopoeia make up a very small portion of my vocabulary, which basically means that my Japanese is excessively boring. In the comment section, guys, please let me know about your experience with onomatopoeia. I'd love to know. And speaking of vocabulary, guys, that's the next thing I'm going to talk about. So the issue that I had with vocabulary was not incorporating audio into my flashcards. I just want to say right off the bat that I'm not much of a flashcard guy. I advocate immersion over using flashcards. And for my first 2 years in Japan, immersion was the way I learned and reviewed vocabulary. Immersion through listening, reading, all that good stuff. But lately, with more time constraints with work and stuff like that, I do use flashcards to some degree. And for about a year of time, I had flashcards with no audio component. So I would have definitions, I would have examples, I'd have all this information, but there was no audio. And so basically I was learning the meaning of words without embodying how a native speaker would say them. When I started adding audio to my flashcards, I started noticing that my accent started to improve. Tell me a bit about your experience with flashcards. I'd love to know if you guys prefer immersion or flashcard use, or if you have a way of combining those two. Let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you. So in relation to making flashcards, I mentioned accent, which is the topic of my next big mistake. Alrighty guys, mistake number 3 is not learning accent systematically as soon as possible. So Japanese consists of 4 main accent types I won't cover in this video, and every word has its own accent in Japanese. And yes, different dialects have different accent types, but unless you're going to live in like the Kansai region, and even if you are going to live in the Kansai region, you can get by knowing the Tokyo dialect accent. I personally only started my systematic study of accent about 9 years into my study of Japanese, and I've made immense improvements since then as far as pronunciation and intonation goes. Sometimes I think, man, where would I have been now if I had done accent right off the bat? So I definitely recommend starting with accent. It's not a waste of your time, it's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's going to help you sound a lot more like a native. Let me know about your experience with accent, if it's something you've studied, and I'll try to get back to you in the comments section. Looking back on things with accent, guys, I think I wasn't self-critical enough. I was overconfident in my own abilities. And this overconfidence is exactly what I want to talk about as my last mistake. Mistake number 4, thinking I was really good after passing the JLPT N1. So passing the JLPT N1 after roughly 2 years of study felt like a huge accomplishment. It was something I was very proud of. And I kind of felt like, okay, I've basically learned Japanese. I can read the kanji, I can have conversations, I can write. Okay, that's all there is to it, right? For the next 6 or 7 years, I didn't pursue Japanese knowledge actively the way I did during my first 2. And yes, I was living in Japan, I was working in Japan, I was going to school in Japan, I was using Japanese daily, but I wasn't actively trying to deepen my understanding of the language per se. I can make an excuse, I was busy learning ancient Greek or ancient Hebrew or whatever, I didn't have time for that. But ultimately, guys, I think the issue was I was overconfident in my ability. However, after restarting my active study of Japanese several years ago, I realized that that assumption couldn't have been farther from the truth. There are so many new frontiers to explore with Japanese. There are so many things I don't know, so many things to learn, so many areas in which to improve. And ironically enough, that aspect of Japanese has become one of my favorite aspects of the language. Of course, if you've passed the JLPT N1 or any level of the JLPT for that matter, I think you should give yourself a big pat on the back. That's a great accomplishment, but please don't make the same mistake that I made in thinking that you're already there. Stay humble, and I think it'll take you a lot farther than you would go otherwise. Alrighty guys, that's it for this one. I hope my mistakes have been of value to you. Let me know what you thought in the comment section. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll get back to you. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Mata ne!